Hello and welcome to part 3 and the last part of stitching your own trousers. Before, I would like to point out one or two more things before we do the last bit of the sewing on these trousers. I mentioned it on the part 2, as these are made with the slit that you have with the fly in the front for women. Of course, you can do this exactly the same, and the whole way the trousers are made are the same for gents trousers, besides that you put the two facings that are on the zipper part on the fly, you have to reverse them. That is the only difference on the whole trousers. And I like to show you, in case if you've never seen these are special facings to iron on for belts. So any kind of belt you want to do, this is a very, very good thing to buy if you can find it. I cut my belt 10 centimeters because I want it to be 4 when it's finished. And after I iron this on, this easily will be ironed in half. And here I got the edges for my 1 centimeter seam on each side to stitch the belt on. So all we got to do today is we have to sew the loops for the belt that we might want in the trousers. We have to stitch the belt on, and we finish on off the bottom of the trousers. So are you ready for this? Then let's do it now.
We start now by sewing the loops. You will never cut, in case you say you want 5 loops, you wouldn't cut 5 single ones. You would always cut a long stripe like I got here and do this. So one side we finished off already on the overlock, which I mentioned before. It's 3 centimeters wide. So fold in first the part that's not been cleaned off with the overlock, put it to about 1/3 and flop over on top the side that has the overlock cleaned off edge. And try to have this really edge on edge now, this turned over edge and the overlook edge, because you have to catch them with this first seam you're doing there. You got to hold this, otherwise it would flip out. So it's really got to be tight on the edge there. Go all the way along there. Again 1/3 and another 1/3 on top. If you wish, you can iron it first. That works as well, of course. But I just do it here directly on my Pfaff sewing machine, going all the way along that edge. I usually, when I do loops like this, I stitch them on both sides, because it looks a little bit unfinished if you only stitch this side together. That means when I get to the end here now, I will just turn around and stitch down the other side. I always cut the loops, the full length, a little bit longer than I actually need, because that's nicer later on for when I'm stitching them on the trousers. So just go along that edge now and finish this long loop off. Then you just look at it again closely. As you can see here, the top, you see both of my stitches there, and when you turn it around, you can see that I've just 2 millimeters inwards, I caught all the overlock stitching, and that's exactly as I wanted it. So I want to have 5 loops on my trousers, and so I could measure the lengths and go by 1/5, but I just hold this approximately like this. That's not quite correct yet, Lilo. Check that over again. Gotta make it a bit shorter there. To have approximately 5 loops, which I will cut right away in position. That's all right. That's good enough for the moment. So cut this through, and you got 5 loops right there. Now, you might have decided already where you would like to put them loops. The usual is that the front ones you put exactly next to your pocket. That's your front pocket. and you put it directly behind the two stitchings you have there. You remember on the first video on the trousers, we did the pockets, we did two stitchings. So that's approximately 1 centimeter away from the pocket where you put your hand in. You do exactly the same, of course, on the other side. And of course you have to put the proper sides on top of each other because you will flap it over later. That means I'm looking on this loop now on the left side on the top here, because the good sides are lying towards each other. On my back seam, the buttock seam, of course you also have a chance, the possibility of stitching that one over. For myself, I don't want to stitch this one over. Therefore, I will put the seams apart. But if you would have stitched it over, it would be lying to one direction. And exactly in the back, in the middle, I put the next loop. And now I got 2 loops left, which you can measure out if you want it exactly between those 2 loops that you got there already. But I'm going to measure this now, and you put it towards the back, not towards the front now, these extra loops. And I think I want them 4 centimeters from the side seam right there. That's correct. So I put my tape measure there, or you could make yourself a little cut on 4 centimeters, or whichever you decide how far you want them inwards. And the same thing I have to do on the other side. Measuring from the side seam towards the back, towards the middle in the back, 4 centimeters out, and exactly there is where I put my 5th loop. Now we need the belt, the waistband to put on. Now, if you don't have any cuts yet where your back middle is or where your sides is, look at it careful. I put the middle in already. But don't think this is exactly in half now, this waistband, because if you check on your trousers, you have this upper and this lower part on the zipper. Look from the middle, from the back, over the side seams, which is the same length to the side seams. That's logical. But towards the front, you will find that your underneath part is longer. And that's why your cuts for your belt are not in the middle. One part has to be longer as well, as you can see here. Otherwise, you got a problem somewhere when you put your cuts in. And as well, I will mark, or I marked already, the sides on my waistband so I know where to go. Now, you always have the possibility of stitching it first on the inside on or on the outside. But I prefer, because it looks tidier on the outside, I prefer to do this on the inside. I had to put an extra piece on this because I didn't have so much material left. So that's why I just explained here the seam that I have, but I put it in a position where later on the loop will go over. Now, the edge from the trousers is finished, but not the one from the waistband. So lay this over by 1 centimeter, because we need that later to finish the edge off, and start stitching this on 1 centimeter. Make sure you have everything underneath lying flat, that you don't get any creases in anywhere. And now look for your first cut and for your side seam, because that has to come on top of each other. Always stitch on the belt, on the waistband, not on the trousers, because you will find the waistband is fixed by the inlay that you put in, and the trousers might be a little bit stretched already, whichever material you got, and to stitch on top of the stretchy part wouldn't be any good. So always make sure you stitch on the waistband that you have there, because then it's very easy to just push a little bit of the width underneath into it. As you can see here, I'm actually about 1 centimeter with my cut away from my middle back, but this is no problem because I can just slightly push this in while putting the belt on. And every machine has a under transport in the bottom, so this automatically always holds it a little bit more in than the top. The top rather pushes it, so it works against each other. But now you see, just by slightly pushing it under, I already got all the widths that might have been there inside, and it's no problem for me just to stitch over there now. Now I got my cut exactly where my seam is, and that's what I wanted. So you continue. Look again for your next cut. That's always important. When you reached one point where you got to go to look for the next one way ahead in time, because otherwise you will find that many times you have to open something up because you didn't look towards the end first. Same here. I gotta look towards the end. I'm pushing underneath a little bit the widths in that I might have there. I want 1 centimeter to stand over, because also on this end, the same as when I started, the trouser edge, the fly edge is finished off, all tidy and clean there. But my belt, my waistband, is not finished, so I need 1 centimeter hanging over right there. Good. So that's that seam done. And the inside is all finished off already and all tidy completely on those trousers. Now we have to finish off the 2 edges first of all. And there are 2 ways of finishing off these edges. And I will show you both. Of course, normally if I do my trousers myself, I do only one way. But I like to show you both possibilities, so you can, on your next trousers, choose whichever one is easier for you or which one you like better. So fold this together on the right side, the belt, and now look for this last stitch that you have in that corner, because now you have to stitch with this one exactly onto that last stitch right there. A 1 centimeter seam into that corner right there. So you finish off there. You see that one. You have to kind of really hold the material well, because of all the material inside there. It likes to push the presser foot slightly away. Now turn it, keep the needle inside the material, turn it and push practically the trouser part into that belt part in. And depending on how hard your material is, you might be able only to do 2 centimeters approximately, as you're stitching practically the belt together now on the trousers. But in my case, the soft material, as you can see, I stitched about 5-6 centimeters now here. So you stitch that corner, cut a little bit of the material out, otherwise it really gets too thick there. And now pull the trouser out or push it through, and now you can see already what I meant with this particular corner, because you've done the first part of the belt totally cleaned off with this way of doing it. No matter which way you look at it, this is already totally finished. There's one thread. Okay, better cut that one off, that bothers me right away. And control, and that's just tidy, it's really well and nice to continue then with the stitching there. But on this side I show you the other way. Instead of going around the corner, you only lay your waistband in half, but both of the seams for the belt you put towards the top. As you can see there where it was stitched on. Put the corners nicely again. And now that is all open. And that's sometimes difficult to push that seam inside there. On many cases it wants to come out again, and that's what I don't like. So that one is totally different, see? But you have to stitch around the corner, like I said. And on the other one you only do a straight line down. Okay. We better start stitching all around the waistband here. So I will start on that part, going around that way. The 1 centimeter is folded in. I make sure that my seam underneath is not plinking out. I didn't go back and forwards on the beginning because when I come around on the belt, I just go some stitches over it again. Now that's a real nice seam we got to do here, because you iron that belt on the top, so it's so quickly done to just stitch along that top. That's why I say when you iron certain things first, God, it's so easy. Just go straight along that edge. Nice learner's seam as well. If you haven't done any sewing and you don't want to risk starting anything, just take a piece of material, iron it in half, and 1 stitch along that edge. Very, very good training to learn how to make an even stitch along a material edge. So, the good part is done. Now, I got to look here. I always got to fold in 1 centimeter because that's what I got. And I didn't put the loops on before because otherwise I would have to stitch over there now, so that wouldn't work. That's one of the last jobs. Here you got to take your time. You could, if you want to, iron 1 centimeter of this particular belt over first. That you can do. But I prefer to do it this way because in case if you ironed it a touch too much over, the belt gets on the top smaller and therefore your underneath seam will show out. But if I do it this way and I fold it over 1 by 1, then if I see my seam from underneath is showing, then I just pull the material out a little bit more and cover it. Although my thread doesn't show here very much, but it doesn't matter. It's about learning it, how to do it correctly. And I don't want that seam to show out. That's why I can always change this, have it 11 millimeters or 9 millimeters, depending on how much I want to cover that seam. Because not necessarily you're always going to wear a belt. I always see people with trousers with loops in the trousers, but they don't have a belt in. That's okay as well, it doesn't matter. So here I'm getting towards the end already, or better to say more or less where I started. That's my last loop here next to my front pocket. And again, also here you could have used the pattern to put on top to hold it down and in, not to push, in case if you see that your machine wants to push it a bit. Oh, sorry, that wasn't my last loop. Here's another one. Big belt, huh? Okay. Okay, but here we are at the end. So I just stitch a couple of stitches over my first ones where I started, as I didn't go back and forth, because it's always a more tidy seam than doing all this back and forward stitching. I prefer it like that. So check it all over if you like it, and then we got to start putting the little loops on. You should think about it way ahead in time, which kind of belt you want to wear with those trousers. I've decided I want to wear this belt with it, so I want it to really be loose in there. I don't want it to be too tight. So I think I'm going to put my first stitches in the inside here on 2 centimeters to hold it down, and maybe let it overroll a little bit more towards the bottom, because the belt not necessarily have to be pushed through the holes and really be to the top to the trousers. It can hang in a little bit. It gives it a more leger feeling and look as well. So on 2 centimeters, I just stitched it down. Now I'm checking again if that is really enough for me as I wish. Yeah, I'm going to give it another centimeter hanging down to really give it some air there. That's what I'm going to do, yes. And I think I'm going to put it now on 7 centimeters, the whole length of the loop. So I'm holding this down first. Take my measurement here, 7 centimeters. Exactly, that's what I want to the top. Put it straight, and now do a very good back and forward stitching, because that's very important that that is held. And later on, when I got them all done, then I will cut the extra overlaid material from that loop off. But I always stitch them on first. So on 2 centimeters, I put a stitch in there. Now I'm folding it over to the top, and I measure that I want my 7 there. Yep, that looks all right to me. So very, very well stitched on. Like I said, they're way too long, because if you only have if you have them too tight and you only got 5 millimeters to flap over, that's not easy or not nice to hold under the machine. It might flips out. So rather make them longer in the beginning and cut them later just shorter as you wish to have them. So you got to do this to all your 5 loops, or maybe you even oh yeah, I once made some trousers that really looks good. I wanted a special effect because the trouser material didn't have any design on it. It was a plain color, and I wanted to wear a different color belt in it. Therefore I made different widths of loops and many more. I think I had about 12 loops all the way around on the trousers, and like I said, in different widths. It really looked fantastic, and everybody said, God, where did you buy those trousers? Because not everybody always needs to know that you do these things yourself. You can always say, well, it's a designer clothes. You know, I got this address, which is really an insider tip, so I can't really tell you, because you couldn't buy them there anyway. Just think of something nice. Get them confused, your neighbors, or, you know, whoever you like to say something nice to. Okay, all the loops are stitched on, tidying up all the little threads, and you got to cut those leftovers off. I do the other ones later, as you don't need me to show you that. So, check everything over on the top, and if you're satisfied with it, then there's only one more thing to do, or 1 or 2 things more to do. That's the seam on the bottom. I tried them on early on already, and I know I want to turn over a 2 centimeter and another 2.5. And I will put the inner seam towards the back, as that is stitched together from my safety overlock machine, as I mentioned before. 2 centimeters and then 2.5. Again, iron this if you wish, but as I like to continue with this for you, not to have to watch me ironing these 2 centimeters over. You can do that. I know you can. And I'm sure you don't want to watch me so long doing this video, so I better get cracking here. Get going. Yep, 2.5, that's what I want. And I go all the way around once. I think I don't need my guide there that I just put there. It's only in my way if I put it against these trousers, because I made them quite tight on the bottom. I wanted some tight trousers, not these white ones. As fashion changes, you change your mind and your taste for fashion, and that's okay. That gives us the possibility of doing something new occasionally. Yep, that's it. Little thread. Get rid of it. Good. And the other trousers as well. And you see it lies down very flat, as if I ironed it before. It's all a matter of holding it, and if you do enough sewing, you will see you get better and better. I've been doing this a little while. I didn't start it yesterday, may I say. So don't think, why is she doing this so fast? Well, Believe me, I've done some stitching in my life. Don't want to go into this. Yep, let's do this last seam here. I think I stitched I can say that. I think I was 5 when my father first put me on his sewing machine. And I watched these seamstresses and his tailors that he had, as we had an own, Maßschneiderei, we say, a tailoring shop. And they always had their fingers so close to this needle and to this presser foot. So I sat on that machine and my daddy left me alone. And I decided I can do that as well. And that is honestly, if you believe it or not, when the first time I stitched myself through the finger. Around when I was 5, because I didn't watch that they also pulled the hands away. It's funny when I think about it now. So now we're getting very close to soon having to wear these trousers. But I still have to put a buttonhole in the top here and sew a button on. I will do this with my household machine. There goes the buttonhole, there goes a button, but I don't think I need to show you that because every household machine has different ways of putting those buttonholes in. So I'm going to try my belt. Look what it looks like. Should go out tonight for a drink then with my new trousers. What about you? Well, I would say as soon as you've done those trousers, you should allow yourself a nice drink. Well, if you're a milk drinker, okay, get yourself a milk or a Coke or lemon, whatever. But if you're like me, a wino, then get the wine out or the beer, whatever you want. But have a drink on yourself that you were able to do this. You deserve it, believe me. Here you see the whole trousers again, and now I can only wish you all the luck to do them. I hope you have fun doing it, and I really hope that this video helps you to really do it like that. And I say thank you so much for watching, and I'm always glad when I get a little comment from you. I really enjoy it. Have a good time. Stay healthy.